Hello. How are you? I'm uh, I'm doing fine, but Anna, I'm gonna have to cut you short. I've got a Zoom meeting with South. Okay. How
Hey,
are
Miss
you?
Arlene.
How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Doing well.
Good. Everybody been healthy?
I thank goodness. I thank the good Lord. I've stayed well. I've had my 2 shots and
Oh,
had
good.
my antibiotics checked, and I'm ready to go.
Good.
So I hope we can all get ready to go pretty soon. Maybe
Yeah.
won't be as long as it has been anyway.
I think there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's been a long year. And I think this is going to be a long meeting.
I think it is too.
Yeah, so sad. But get all my stuff together.
Okay. Welcome to Committee of the Whole for March 4, 2021. We appreciate everybody being here. We have as you, we're going to start right into the audit committee in just a second, but if you're in the room, you're okay. But if you're on Zoom, you'll need to turn your mics on and off. You'll need to make sure your mic is on if you're on the committee, and so that Monica can hear you and know that you're present. Anything else, Monica or Aaron? We're good? Yes. Turn your mics on and off as you need to in order to, because if you don't have your mic on, the people on Zoom will not be able to hear you. So, okay. Looks like Zoom is coming in. Aaron, is everybody connected? Yes. Okay. Sorry, we'll just do this informally. I like it. We got a lot more people here and we can see each other, but at the same time, we got to make sure everybody's connected and able to participate. So with that, we're going to go right into the committee reports and start with the audit committee. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monica, can we have a roll call of the audit committee, please?
Ms. Atkins,
Here.
Mr. Corcoran, Mr. Graham,
Here.
Captain Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Perkins, Judge Simon.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Monica. Moving on to item number 2, which is the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 audit committee meeting. And I'd like to entertain a motion for approval. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Today, I'd like to introduce Laura Surratt, which is our Executive Director of Internal Audit and Compliance Officer. And I think she has an announcement to make with some new additions to her area. So I will turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Chair Graham, and good afternoon, committee members and members of the board. My name is Laura Surratt, and I serve as the Executive Director of Internal Audit. And I'd like to take this opportunity to update you on our new hires in the Office of Internal Audit. DeAndrea Hudson joined our Internal Audit Department in October of 2020 as an internal auditor. Dee has a bachelor's and a master's degree from the University of Mobile and has experience in auditing and financial analysis. Jeffrey Bunting joined the Internal Audit Department in December of 2020 as a senior internal auditor. And Jeffrey has a bachelor's degree from Spring Hill College and a master's degree from the University of South Alabama, go Jags, and has experience in auditing, financial preparation, and tax. So Chair Graham, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura at this time? Okay. Moving on now, I will introduce Mr. Scott Weldon. He has a report for item number 3 and number 4 of our agenda today.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. I'd first like to report to you that we have re-engaged the firm of KPMG, the accounting and auditing firm, for the 2021 through 2023 audit years. KPMG has been auditing the university since 2004 and has done an outstanding job and been a tremendous resource to management. They are the preeminent auditing firm for higher education and academic medical centers, and we are pleased to have them back on board. I will tell you that if you average out the next 3 years' fees, they charge what they have been paying for the last 2 years. So we're very pleased with that. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, if there are none, the next item in tab 4, you'll find a copy of the KPMG's NCAA report. This is a report of our intercollegiate athletic department as required by NCAA bylaws. To remind you that this is not a an audit report. So there is no audit opinion per se, but there were no findings or no exceptions in the work that they did. So it was a clean report, and I'll be happy to answer questions about that as well. That concludes my
All right, thank you, Scott. And Mr. Chairman, that includes the audit committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the list is development and endowment. Mr. Yance.
Would you call the roll, Monica, please?
Ms. Brown Stewart,
Here.
Dr. Charlton,
Here.
Ms. Mitchell,
Here.
Dr. Stokes,
Here.
Ms. Tuxton,
Here.
Judge Wyndham,
Here.
Mr. Yance.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, I'd like to call on Terry. Is he here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right,
Thank you,
now,
Jim.
You have a report for us from one of our endowment people, do you not?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over our performance first, and then I'll introduce our guest manager, if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine. I didn't know what order you wanted to.
No, that's fine. Jeb, if you want to go ahead and turn to the next page. I'm happy to report positive results on our first quarter for our fiscal year 2021. As you can see, our performance from October 2020 through the end of December came in at 9.72% versus our index of 9.15%, outperforming by 57 basis points. So very happy with the performance for our first quarter. Next page, you'll see our individual managers report. You'll immediately see Common Fund, which is one of our larger investment managers, turning its performance around, outperforming by 62 basis points. While its equity performance continues to lag, their fixed income provided the majority or the outperformance over its index. We're going to continue to follow Common Fund's performance on a month-to-month basis. We also saw great performance from Douglas Lane, outperforming by 2%. Most of their performance came from their financial and information technology sectors. And one of our hedge fund managers, Forrester, has made some changes in their manager lineup, which reflected positively on their performance, outperforming by 3.25%. And finally, we continue to see great performance from JP Morgan's Emerging Markets Fund, creating an outperformance of 2.6%. Next page looks at our asset allocation. If you turn to the very far right, shaded in green, you'll see our ending value at the end of the quarter, just shy of $190 million. You also see our large cap allocation at 36%, followed by small cap at 5%, international 12%, fixed income 23%. I apologize for that. Private equity at 3%, which continues to grow, and hedge fund at 21%. Next page looks at our inception to date performance. Our annualized performance since inception came in at 5.85% versus our index of 4.77%, outperforming by 1.08%. And then finally, our last page looks at our dollar earnings since inception. When I reported last quarter, our earnings came in at $99.7 million, just shy of the $100 million mark. With the current quarterly performance, we were able to break $100 million for the first time. Through this quarter, we created investment earnings and appreciation of $116.5 million since endowment's inception. And as Jim mentioned earlier, we do have a guest manager today via Zoom. They've been with the endowment since 2004, and they represent one of our hedge fund allocations. And here to discuss Gerber Taylor is Matt Kinnear. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt. And Jeb, there is a presentation for Gerber if you want to bring that up.
Thanks, Terry.
You're
Hello,
welcome.
everyone. Good afternoon. And we're happy to talk with you via Zoom. Amazing what technology can do these days. If you can go ahead, and I'm not going to spend any time on page 2. You can look at that at your leisure. That just gives you some overview, background on Gerber Taylor. Page 3, real quickly, what makes us different? We've been doing this for a long time, for over 30 years. We have a deep research team. Alignment, we are invested alongside of you. So collectively, the employees of Gerber Taylor are invested in the same investments at the same fees that the university is. We're independent. We think that's very important to be able to do our research. We're 100% employee owned, and relationships are very important to us. And we certainly appreciate the long history we have with the University of South Alabama. Next page gives you an overview of performance through December 31st. On the right-hand side, the pie chart shows you your allocation. As Terry indicated, the bulk of our assets are in our hedge strategies. The yellow slice and the green slice make up 83% of what we manage for you. The blue slice up in the 1 o'clock position is an international equity fund, which we think is differentiated from your typical international fund. And then that tiny red slice is a private equity portfolio that we're continuing to build out, and we're very pleased with the progress there. If you look down at the bottom of the page, and I'm sorry, if you can go back one, at the performance summary on the bottom, you can see what the results were for the current fiscal year, up 8.2%, strong quarter, and for the 1 year, up 16.8%. And if you look up at the summary of cash flows, you can see over a 1 year period what that translates into. You started with just under $39 million with us, added $400,000, had a net positive investment gain of $6.5 million to end the year, the calendar year, at $45.7 million. If you go to the next slide. This shows our long history with you, and again, very appreciative of that history. Kind of down the bottom of the page, what you'll see is you've added 26 million, given Gerber Taylor 26 million. Over the 16 years, we've had a net investment gain of just under 20 million. So 26 in plus 20 million in appreciation gets you to your 45.7 million. Next slide, please. I think this is an important slide. This is a risk analysis with risk measured by a standard deviation on the x-axis and return on the y-axis. The total fund, that solid square, is the University of South Alabama's performance with Gerber Taylor. The green X is the Barclays Aggregate Index. That's a bond index. And then that green circle, the MSCI World, is a world equity index. So really the role that Gerber Taylor is playing is to provide diversification and on a very risk adjusted basis. So we are giving you better than bond type performance with risk slightly more than bonds, but significantly less than the equity markets. So playing the role of a diversifier and a defensive posture for you in your portfolio when there's some troubles in the markets, as there tends to be, like we saw in the first quarter last year. Go to the next slide. Now I'm just going to briefly, real quickly, hit on the highlights of the investments that you have with us. GT Partners is part of that hedged allocation. It's a multi-strategy. The pie chart on the left shows you how it is allocated. Very diversified. There's 22 underlying managers. For 2020 performance, it was up 12% versus 6% for the index. So we doubled the index. Very pleased with the performance. And you've been invested in that fund since October of 2004. It's your longest investment with us. Next slide.
I can't skip in this report, but I'm not sure.
Page 8, again, gives you an indication of the risk-adjusted measures. So what this shows you is how this fund has performed in down months. So in the 119 months when the S&P 500 has been down, GT Partners has only been down 3.7% versus the S&P 500 down 435%. And probably more importantly, given today's environment, on the right-hand side, how does GT Partners do in a negative environment for bonds? Given how low bond rates are today, we think there's a pretty decent chance that we'll see negative returns from bonds or very low returns from bonds. And GT Partners has actually had positive performance in the months when the bond index, as measured by the Barclays US Aggregate Index, has been down. So February being an example, the bond market was down, and we're still finalizing our February numbers for GT Partners, but that portfolio is going to be in positive territory. Page 9 is our hedged equity portfolio. This is the other component of your hedged exposure. There are 17 underlying managers. This is more equity oriented, but again, providing you more defensive posture than the equity markets. Although in 2020, this fund outperformed the equity markets up 23.5% versus that MSCI World Index up only 16.5%. We were able to do that by protecting your capital in the down market of the early part of last year, and then participating in the rebound that we saw post that initial downdraft from COVID. You go to the next slide. Similar story here to GT Partners. This is showing you the down months just for the S&P 500. Because it's a hedge portfolio, on the left-hand side, we're not going to keep up in the big up months for the market. But on the right-hand side, when the S&P 500 is down, this portfolio is going to be down. The expectation is it to be down a lot less. Again, providing that risk and diversification to your portfolio. Go to the next slide. Quickly on the private equity investment. It's a 2018 vintage fund. You committed $2 million. We called 45% as of year end. We just had another 10% capital call, so you're up to 55% called. We've committed about 90% of this fund. The internal rate of return as of September 30th was 17.3, so off to a very healthy start. We're getting the marks in now for year end, and that return is going to go up. So this fund's off to a great start. And just wanted to mention, we hope you'll continue your private equity program with us. We are launching our next private equity portfolio 10, and look forward to talking to you about that. And then finally, on page 12, to wrap up, this is the international portfolio, GT International. In 2020, it was up 14.3% versus 8.3% for the index. So outperforming the index by a wide margin. And a diversified portfolio of 16 managers who are all country or regional specialists. So again, we feel this is a very unique international fund that probably complements your other international managers very well. I know you have a lot on your agenda today, so I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions. And again, we appreciate all the time we've worked with you.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions of Matt or myself? We're extremely happy with Gerber Taylor's, the value that they add to the endowment. They've been with the endowment, as Matt said, since 2004. So we'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Hey, Terry, Mike Wyndham.
Yes.
Thank you for your report. You know, when we had a preview, I suggested if there's a way to get, it's like the report is as of December 31st, and we're almost like, it's in March now. If we could get maybe a little more updated, almost like at these meetings, how we're doing as of today or something close to it, or a rough idea.
Well, and Judge Wyndham, that's a great point. I did take a quick peek. These may not be extremely accurate, but they're fairly accurate. When you look into January's performance, we created a return just slightly under where we are today, 8.97%. But the most important piece is we continue to outperform our index by 52 basis points. I know we discussed that at our pre-endowment quarterly meeting. So I made it a point to try to get you something, or the group something today. And it's difficult to get those numbers because a lot of the hedge fund managers and the private equity numbers, we don't get those statements until about a month, and sometimes even a little bit longer than that. But that's like a preview into January. So that's a great question.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Terry. We'll move to development now, Margaret.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon. We've just completed our first 5 months of fiscal year 2021, and the amount raised to date is $8.251 million. That's about 2,500 gifts from 2,000 donors, 331 of whom are new donors to the university. And in that $8.2 million raised, we do have a transformative gift to USA Health that Owen will talk a little bit about in a few minutes. One of the initiatives that we are particularly excited about is the Leadership in Social Justice and Perseverance Scholarship. If you remember, that was a scholarship established late last summer and seeded through the vision of 100 Black men of Greater Mobile. And to date, we have raised over $90,000, which is matched through the Mitchell Moulton Initiative. So we are at about a little over $181,000 in that scholarship. The goal is to raise at least $500,000. We have had tremendous support. Ms. Margie Tuckson, one of our board members, has been incredibly supportive. We've had AT&T, Hancock Whitney Bank, Regions Bank, Alabama Power, and most recently, and very exciting, Tony and Julie Waldrop, Dr. Mike Mitchell, Dr. Andre Green, Dr. Errol Crook, Dr. Angela Coleman, and Dr. Paul Frazier have collectively pledged $35,000 to this scholarship. So lots of good things going on there. The pandemic USA Giving response continues. To date, we've raised a little over $285,000, and that is supporting South Cares, the College of Medicine Cares program, USA Health Pandemic Emergency Funds, and telehealth, as well as some of the meals that were provided, particularly early on in the pandemic. We are underway right now with our South Fund Employee Annual Giving Campaign that will go through March. And then on April 22nd, we have our 4th annual Give Day, which we are going to tag Spring into Action and Pay It Forward. Some health events are coming up on May 27th. We will have a safe and socially distanced Hope Cup golf tournament benefiting Mitchell Cancer Institute. Local Goodness will be promoting naming opportunities within the emergency center at Children's and Women's Hospital. And then we've got some great cancer control and prevention activities underway at Mitchell Cancer Institute. And I know there's some looming projects that are exciting. Certainly the College of Medicine Education Building, the Jaguar Marching Band facility, and scholarships. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Yance. Next item on the agenda is the Health Affairs Committee. Dr. Furr.
Monica, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Ms. Brown Stewart.
Here.
Dr. Charlton.
Here.
Dr. Furr.
Here.
Ms. Mitchell. Ms. Mitchell.
She said here.
Dr. Stokes.
Here.
Ms. Tuckson.
Here.
Mr. Yance. We have a quorum.
So the first is to approve the minutes from our previous meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
The next is to approve the USA Health hospital medical staff appointments and reappointments in November, December 2020 and 2021. The subcommittee's already looked at that and recommend approval. Hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Now a report from USA Health and College of Medicine. Dr. Miramont.
Hello, everybody. We have two presentations for you today. First, I have an acknowledgement on somebody. USA Health is in the middle of everything COVID. One of our pediatric infectious disease doctors, Dr. Benjamin Estrada, sits on the Sunbelt Athletic COVID Committee and works extensively with them on the Sunbelt Conference and with Joel Erdman testing our athletes, and has been instrumental in this. And I'd just like to acknowledge him and his participation and what he's done for USA. So I'd like to tell the board that first. Secondly, on continuing on COVID, our presentation, one of them today is by Natalie Fox. Natalie is our chief nurse for our physician group. Natalie early on started with testing and setting up the leadership and the infrastructure for testing of COVID and then the vaccinations. And she has been the driving force, and is everybody wants Natalie, and we are so thrilled that she is part of USA Health and is really the leader behind the scenes of our testing and vaccination sites and infrastructure. We couldn't be more proud of her and her team. And she has a presentation today on our vaccination program and pandemic response. So, do you want to say anything else about her?
Just to add my appreciation to Natalie and her whole team for what they're doing. They're just making such a difference and giving out that hope that comes with that vaccine. And I wanted to read real quickly. We get a lot of response from the community about how well this is going, and we're touching a lot of lives. And I got a card yesterday, which I thought was appropriate with Natalie presenting today. I thought I'd read it very quickly from a member of the community. Mr. Bailey, just want to thank you and your staff for the professional, efficient, and caring delivery of the vaccine. I now know what angels look like. You should be proud of them. They are a gift to us. P.S. The Mardi Gras beads were a great touch. What Natalie, I don't know if she's going to mention to you or not, but she is joining us today. She's right now at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church over on Cody Road, where we are doing a vaccination drive this afternoon for that community. So we'll turn it over to Natalie. She's got a presentation for you. We appreciate her so much. Natalie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Owen, and thank you, Dr. Marymont, and a big thank you to the Board of Trustees for having me join y'all's meeting today. Can you hear me okay? If everybody could just make sure my volume's okay.
You're good.
Very good. All right, so as Owen and Dr. Marymont said, I'm Assistant Administrator and Chief Nurse Officer for USA Health's Physician Group, and I'm thrilled to be here today to give you a little bit about our journey in our vaccine pandemic response, where we've been, kind of where we are now, and where we're wanting to go. So our journey started back on December 15th when we received our first shipment of COVID vaccines. And by 5 p.m. that afternoon, we were the first in our area and had already administered 17 vaccines that day. We had some very eager healthcare staff who were happy to be the first in line. And here are some photos from that day where we have one of our nurses, Kimberly Tucker, along with one of our physicians taking that vaccine. We quickly, though, realized that, what we were doing at the hospital for the past couple of weeks, and you can go to the next slide. What we did in December was really focus on healthcare workers. And we didn't really know if ADPH was going to give us any more vaccines or not. And when we found out that they were, while we knew what we were doing at University Hospital and Children's and Women's, providing hospital-based vaccines to our healthcare staff and other healthcare people in the area, we did know that we needed to do something else to target the vaccines in our community. So we drew on our past experiences from our COVID testing. If you could go to the next slide for me. Thank you. So we had been doing COVID testing in our community since March. We had partnered with the city of Mobile in April of 2020, and we had done COVID testing at Lad People Stadium outside, and we quickly, with the Alabama heat and Alabama thunderstorms, had to come up with a plan B. So in June, we had moved to the Mobile Civic Center, and that's where our testing still is, but it's located in the expo hall there. And we test anywhere from 100 to 250 people a day via drive-through. We knew that was safe for our staff and safe for those patients coming to get tested. And so at that point, we wanted to collaborate again with the city of Mobile, and they were very quick and eager to take us up on the offer. And we set up drive-through vaccines at the Civic Center Arena on January 14th. It seems like months ago, and it also seems like just yesterday that we were there delivering 150 vaccines on that first day, and we were thrilled. We were thrilled that it worked, but we knew we didn't want to stay there. So what we did was we focused on process improvement and the patient experience, really trying to put the patient in the middle of this engagement, and we've been able to increase our capacity up to 1,000 vaccines a day. And we operate there Monday through Friday. I have a wonderful team. They're a very dedicated group of staff and volunteers, along with the College of Nursing and Allied Health. We have a PA school involved, where they really put the heart of wanting to serve the community in everything that they do. And Owen's right. We have gotten feedback after feedback from the community of supportive letters like that. And that is because of the people there, like you see in this photo, interacting with the patients day in and day out. And they are the ones that are making the difference, and they're delivering safe, efficient care to the community of Mobile. One more slide for me. Thank you. So one thing that makes us a little different and unique, other than what we do compared to some of the other vaccine clinics around Mobile and around the nation really, is that we go ahead and give our patients their booster dose appointment while they're with us. So we saw that being a source of anxiety for some groups and not knowing when they were going to return to get their booster dose. So while we're monitoring them for 15 minutes, we go ahead and schedule that booster dose for them. And then as long as the patient provides us with an email address or a cell phone number, we're able to engage with that patient well after they receive that vaccine with us. And we're able to text them and email with them and check in to make sure that they're doing okay, as well as remind them of that upcoming booster dose appointment in 21 days. All right, one more slide for me. Thanks. One of the big logistical operations with this was, how do we really get people to come in for a vaccine? So I was watching people around struggle trying to run call centers. The call centers that were trying to schedule vaccine appointments were getting inundated with calls. And we knew that if we set up a call center, it would quickly do the same. So again, we collaborated with our partners, with Health Information Technology, the USA College of Nursing, and the USA Biomedical Library to really pull together and to build a robust online vaccine registry and self-scheduling program. It allows anybody to go in there and register, no matter their eligibility category, and we go ahead and place them in line so that when they are eligible for a vaccine and we have vaccine supply available, we're able to engage with them via email or text message to be able to schedule that appointment and come see us at the Civic Center. But again, we knew that the Civic Center didn't work for the masses. It's great. We're able to process a lot of vaccine appointments through there. It's efficient, but we knew we wanted to get out into the community. So early in February, we were able to go on site to over 50 schools in Baldwin County. And in just 3 days, we provided vaccines to over 2,000 educators in their schools with a team of pharmacists and nurses. And on February 18th, we did our first community vaccine drive, where we actually went into the community and partnered with churches. And we ended up at Yorktown Baptist Church in Africatown, where we were able to administer vaccines to over 400 eligible community members. And I can't say enough about how amazing that day was, because what we saw was that the first people in line that came to get their vaccine, they went home and they came back. They came back with grandparents. They came back with neighbors that they had went and talked into getting the vaccine and provided them transportation and got them up there. And everyone we gave a vaccine to that day was from within about a 5 to 10 mile radius. So just like Owen mentioned, where we really want to go is more community outreach. And today we're here at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, just down the road from campus, outreach in their community to their congregations and their neighborhoods. And I was able to interact with a man here right when I got here on site today that was really excited to tell me that he had brought his 84-year-old mom up here and that he had to really convince her to come. And I said, well, what do you think made her come here as opposed to going to the Civic Center or any of the other offerings? He said it was because it was right around the corner from her house and it was at our church. So again, something really special to us. And we plan to administer 500 vaccines here today. And then I also want to talk about our mass vaccination event that's on the next slide. So on February 13th, we did our first mass vaccine event, where we provided over 2,000 vaccines in one day to local educators and other eligible community members. We were able to accomplish this with an outpouring of supportive volunteers from our University of South Alabama and USA Health community, and we are set to go for round 2 on Saturday. So again, a lot happening right now. It's our own version of March Madness in the vaccine world. As we keep going, as long as we have vaccines available to us, we want to give them. So just a little bit about our vaccines by the numbers. And I wanted to be able to share how many vaccines and how many tests we've done. So to date, actually, we're sitting around 32,000 vaccines administered. By end of day Saturday, we're going to be over 35,000. So as you can see, that number is increasing rapidly. We've done over 55,000 COVID tests as a health system. USA Health has vaccinated nearly 50% of its employees, and we are targeting how to increase vaccine confidence and vaccine engagement with those groups who have not yet elected to take the vaccine. And for USA Campus, over 35%, and as of today, it's actually closer to 40% have received the vaccine. We have a quick video that we want to show y'all of our event that we did on March 13th, just so y'all can get an idea and an appreciation of how the site works. And again, I just want to thank y'all for having me here today. I'm happy to take any questions after the video plays. Thank you, and a big thanks again for letting me present with you guys. And I appreciate all the support that we've received from the health system and from USA, our family, and the community in general. So thank you, Dr. Marymont.
Any questions?
John, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I think I participated in every phase of your activity, particularly down at the Civic Center. I got tested and I was positive, and I got retested, and I've got vaccinated. And truly, your team, Natalie, the whole group, doing a great job. I mean, I think the same young lady greeted us each time I came down there. I can't tell you how well you guys are doing with what you're doing. It's really emotional, because to be involved with something that is that well done, and helping people the way you're doing, and the outreach that you're doing, it's really, really powerful. And I just can't say how much I appreciate it. And I appreciate it because personally it helped me, and also I'm proud of South Alabama for what they're doing.
And I want to echo what Jimmy said. Francis and I went through it about 2 weeks ago, and I was shocked at how efficient and friendly and helpful everything was. So it's a credit to y'all and to the university. Thanks for everything.
What's the status for our hospital employees or frontline people that are dealing with patients? Where are we on getting all them vaccinated? Number one, and number two, are we going to require our employees to be vaccinated if they're going to have patient care?
One, it's about 50%. Two, I think and I think Kristen's on, she can correct me if I'm wrong, the vaccination is still designated as an emergency use vaccine. And I don't think we can require it yet until that is lifted. Kristen, am I right?
Right, that's correct. That's correct. And even when it is lifted, we will still need to honor and do a careful analysis of any request for an exemption based on religion or based on disability. So we'll definitely have some things we need to think about as we move forward with that.
And in front of you is a brochure of USA Health. And that brochure is given to every car that comes through our testing center. So so we have our outreach and our marketing. And so every car, hopefully it's new patients and new people into the USA Health system. Any other questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
When you complete a vial, and if at the end of the day there's vaccine left over, do you open it up to people who are outside of the state limitations right now?
So yes, we don't throw anything away. So we definitely will get on the phone and make calls. Usually each vial has anywhere from 5 to 6 doses in it. We have the Pfizer BioNTech product, and depending on what syringes we have, depends on whether or not we get 5 or 6. So we can do our best with the schedule, but with people who may not show or we have add-ons, we usually do have anywhere from 3 to 4 doses at the end of the day. We do have an official list because I'm getting it come out of the woodwork. There's a lot of ethical dilemmas, just like right now we're at this church, and some of the hardest conversations we have to have are with people who are 62 and have comorbid conditions. But what we tell them is we have your name and number. And even today, if something happens, we're not going to throw anything away. And we will put them on our end of the day list. And they're usually people that we have interacted with who have came to the site who weren't eligible. They rode up there with their grandparent or something just to see, and that's how we get their information. So yes.
So on the very first day, they quickly figured out on their test run that the Pfizer had 1 or 2 extra doses, and they didn't know what to do. And I got a call and said, "Hey, there's a little extra in there. Do you want it?" And I said, "Of course, you can't put it to waste." Absolutely. So we've been doing this from day one, and then the FDA and CDC figured out their extra doses, and then they finally approved those extra doses to be used. But we've been doing this from the onset.
I know you're tracking the patients come back, but have you had any report of any untoward events? A lot of people don't want to get it because they're afraid they're going to get some kind of bad reaction. Have you had any bad reactions, any hospitalizations?
Natalie, not that I know of.
Could you repeat the question for me, Dr. Marymont?
Have we had any severe adverse reactions?
To date, we have not had anybody have anaphylaxis. It is the study that came out based on the CDC V-Safe data was around 11 in a million would have a true anaphylactic reaction. We do have EMS on site with us, as well as when we go in the community like today, as well as when we're at the Civic Center. Most of the time when we have to have a healthcare provider or EMS interact with the patient, it's been some type of shortness of breath, but not a true anaphylactic reaction. So that has been encouraging. And the majority of patients don't have to have any type of advanced provider or EMS come intervene with them after they get the vaccine. But we are still monitoring everybody for 15 minutes. Unless you have a history of severe allergies, we keep you for 30 minutes.
And Natalie, how many do you have pending on your list of people?
Pending people in eligible categories currently in our registry is over 7,000. We are quickly moving several of them to be scheduled. Most of those are in the category of over 65. Of course, we still have some educators, manufacturing, that every time we figure out we're getting vaccine from the state, we pull some through. The next largest category pending, which is still not eligible here in Alabama, is the 16 to 64-year-olds with a qualifying condition. I don't know exactly when the state will put forward, but I imagine in the next couple of weeks before we get into April, they will expand to that category. And again, where we want to be and where our heart is in the community. I think that we're going to continue to try to do what we do and try to do an outreach about once a week in our partnership with the city of Mobile to try to take vaccine into the community as much as possible if we have it.
And your vaccine supply?
We were able to get our vaccine supply increased to a dose of 5,800 doses per week. And so that's what we should be receiving from the state every week until further notice. So I've received it once, and so I'll hopefully receive it again next week, and I'll feel a little more confident that we're going to keep getting it. But that's what they've agreed to give us for now.
I have another question. How do you begin to migrate from Pfizer to Moderna to J&J? So you have a certain number of people right now that are getting maybe their first or second dose of Pfizer. So what do you, is it dependent totally on what the state sends you? Since this one requires a lot more storage and control. And as we get to the others, which have, less and less in terms of 1 dose versus 2 dose versus less refrigeration. So how do you begin to do the migration from Pfizer to the other products that are out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So I think it is dependent on what the state gives us. And because we have the capacity for that ultra cold freezer, and recently in the news, they did say that the Pfizer product could be at like a regular freezer for, I think it's like 2 weeks. And so that's going to increase some of the people that can handle Pfizer. As far as the Moderna, we weren't eligible to get any of the Moderna because we could hold the Pfizer product. And the Johnson & Johnson, I know Dr. Estrada was on a call with ADPH this week, actually, as they were trying to talk about, the state knows, I think they're getting 40,000 doses, but trying to decide where those doses need to go. I don't think that they had came a plan. It makes it a little tricky based on some of the efficacy data and how they're going to send that out. So I think they're just going to send it to anybody else who's registered, ready, and willing to take vaccine. But they've been pretty clear with us that we will probably stay Pfizer because of our ability to be able to store that in quantities with the ultra cold freezer beyond 2 weeks.
And Trustee Tuxen, I think the J&J one's a perfect vaccine to bring out into the communities because it doesn't have to be refrigerated and frozen, and it's a one shot, and hopefully we can start that with J&J eventually. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Owen is going to give a little update on our construction projects and where we stand with some of the efforts on USA Health and our construction things.
Thank you. Just there's 3 quick photos here, or 3 quick events. This was the ribbon cutting at the Fannie Meisler Trauma Center back in January. We were just so pleased that the governor and Bert Meisler and his family could be with us that day, as well as a number of you. And I will just go ahead and tell you, and go ahead, Jeb, to the next slide here. This facility is one of the best and most modern you will find anywhere. And we're just thrilled that our really great team now has a really modern facility to be in. It is, in essence, full since the day we opened it. And we are thrilled to have it. And it's making a big, big difference already. Okay. This is our Midtown clinic. And we just cut the ribbon a few weeks ago on that. It actually opened this Monday. And right now, this is on Old Shell Road in Midtown, an area of that's really seeing a lot of growth. And this facility right now has ENT and endocrinology and a focus on diabetes as well. And so we do anticipate that that service mix will grow as this facility grows. Okay. And this is a rendering of what a much, much needed facility, which is the new pediatric emergency center at Children's and Women's Hospital. You've heard us talk about this for a long time and how much it is needed. I'm very happy today to echo what Margaret referenced a few minutes ago, to tell you that a transformational gift has been given from a very good friend of USA. And that gift is allowing us to move forward now with this project. Can't really say enough about that generous gift and what it means and what it's going to mean to thousands of children and their families in this Gulf Coast region. So we actually turned the certificate of need application in this week. We'll go through about a 2 or 3 month process to get that approval. We'd love to break ground on this project later this summer or early fall. And so that is our plan. Again, just like the trauma center at University Hospital, we have an incredible staff at Children's and Women's. It's going to be exciting to see them have a very modern facility as well. So any questions about any of those? Thank you. Not at this moment. No, it's endocrine. Yeah. Tom.
Oh, and I have a question, but you triggered it when you talked about certificate of need.
Yes.
What's the status of Baldwin County?
certificate of need?
Well, we had about a 5-week hearing in the fall, and then the process is the record of the hearing has to be produced, and that happened this week. And then now the administrative law judge has a period of time to write a proposed order, and that will be that should be done around May. And then if that happens by then, we would go to the probably the next certificate of need board hearing, or present to that board, and they would vote at that time. So we're May or June away from hearing how that's going to go. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh, and I have a question. Hey, this is Ken Owen.
Yes, sir.
We used to have a relationship, if I remember right, with a kidney dialysis provider. Maybe it was Fresenius or someone else. And maybe I'm not remembering this correctly, but do we provide any kidney dialysis care?
We have a relationship with Fresenius, and they actually have a site right on the campus of University Hospital, and you're right, that's a long-standing relationship. But you know, most of the dialysis, the outpatient dialysis, happens in their locations. But we do still have that location.
Is that a service that's mostly provided by private providers?
I would say yes. John, do you want to comment on from the physician
It's
standpoint?
Dialysis units, and we're looking into that. Dr. Crook is a nephrologist, and we've had discussions with him about expanding nephrology. And one of the people that is slated to come is a pediatric nephrologist, which we need desperately, and help grow our pediatric aspect.
I couldn't hear any of that, John.
Okay.
We're having dialogue right now about nephrology, and I think that's one of the areas we've identified. In pediatric nephrology, for instance, we're talking to someone about joining our team, and so we would love to for that person to come, and we will expand that service line even more. But it's sort of a work in process right now.
Okay, yeah, I know that's a big need in the community in general.
And a very important one. You're right.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report.
Thank you, Dr. Furr. Next item on the list is academic and student affairs. Judge Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monica, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Charlton,
Here.
Dr. Furr, Mr. Graham,
Here.
Captain Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Perkins, Ms. Tuckson,
Here.
Judge Wyndham.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Monica. I trust everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any changes, additions, corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and so the minutes are approved. Turning now to item number 15 on the agenda, Dr. Marymont is going to tell us, we have one thing to approve, is tenure for 3 new exciting hires.
Yes.
Dr. Marymont, can you tell us a little bit about them?
We have 3 great hires that you will meet tomorrow. In front of you is a recommendation to approve Dr. Christopher Davies, who's a basic scientist, who is our new Associate Dean of Research. The second is Jimmy Slaughterback, orthopedic surgeon, a very well-respected orthopedic surgeon in the area of sports medicine. Was full professor at the University of Vermont and is our new chair of orthopedic surgery. And the third is Dr. Marty Heslin, who is a extremely well-known nationally and internationally cancer surgeon, who is our new director of the Mitchell Cancer Institute. All these people have gone through the appropriate faculty promotions committee and are there in front of you to approve.
All right, any questions, Dr. Marymont? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution, the 10-year resolution.
So moved.
Second, all right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition, any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Dr. Marymount.
Thank you, and I'll
We
introduce
look
them
forward,
to you
we look
tomorrow.
forward to meeting them tomorrow.
Then I'll give you their most of their bio. It'd take hours for all of them, but thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we turn to academic affairs, and we're going to have a report from Dr. Kent.
Thank you, Judge Wyndham. Good afternoon. I want to let you know that USA received over $30 million in federal stimulus money and over $5.5 million from state CARES awards through February of 2021, not including funding for USA Health. I'm going to introduce to you today two people, Julie Swint, who's the Associate Vice President for Finance and Administration, and Raj Chaudhary, who's the Executive Director of the Innovation and Learning Center. And they're going to discuss how we use these CARES funds for our faculty and student support during COVID-19.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me start by saying that of the $30 million, we were able to award out over approximately $11.5 million to students. That's already been issued to students. So we received the federal funding in two different waves. The first wave we refer to as HERF 1. You'll see the distribution on the screen. It was $5.7 million to the institution and $5.7 million to the institution to be awarded to students in the form of emergency grants. Additionally, we received around $500,000 to be used by the institution in the Strengthening Institutions program. This particular program had fewer restrictions, but as you can imagine, coming to us from the federal government, it was quite a bit of quicksand to work through all the restrictions and administer the funding properly and successfully and quickly. So the first pot of money, or the first allocation I want to speak on, is the student piece. So we received this funding around end of April, beginning of May in 2020. And as you can imagine, many people in the community and our students were suffering financially. So our goal was to issue the money out to students as quickly as possible. But as you can also imagine, we had to first make sure that we were being good stewards of the money and maintaining a strong compliance internal control environment so that we could support our decisions. So we created an application process. The first round of funding for students required that students not be enrolled in an online only course or program, and that the funding could not go to international students this round. And so we created an application process, and we used the FAFSA to verify that students were U.S. citizens. And that also helped us assess need, because with the FAFSA comes some scores related to need and our unmet need. And so we were able to use that to kind of gauge the tiers. You'll see here that we received 6,258 applications out of a population of 7,055 eligible students. And we made a total of 4,598 awards. Okay. So who did we make the awards to? So we made the awards to both undergraduate and graduate students. And as you can see, the majority of the funding went to our undergraduate full-time Pell students. But we were also able to award to undergraduate full-time other, part-time Pell, basically to our entire student body if they had a FAFSA on file. We made these awards in 3 different tiers. So we had a top tier that came in at $1,315, a middle tier at $1,115, and a lower tier at $915. One thing I want to mention is while we use the FAFSA data and Pell status to determine the need, we also ask a question on the application. If a student, a parent, or guardian had lost their job because of the coronavirus pandemic. I believe this is important because FAFSAs are typically submitted months and months ahead of time. The pandemic changed everything. You could have had two parents working jobs making six figures, and all of a sudden those jobs went away. And so we ask a question, did a parent or student or guardian lose their job as a result of the pandemic? And we assessed the need based on that as well. So it wasn't a quick process. It required a lot of review, but we tried to use all data available to us to make informed decisions. Okay, next slide. So you may wonder, did it help our students? I'd like to think so. Of the students that received awards, 23% graduated, 68% are still enrolled, and 9% didn't persist. But I think this is to be expected. It was a really hard time, and students, they don't persist for many reasons. I can't tell you that all 9% is related to coronavirus, but what I can tell you is that we did graduate 23%, and we have 68% still here, and I think that's pretty remarkable. Okay. So we also received that $5.7 million to the institution to be used to help us transition to distance education. That was one potential use. Another potential use was to further fund students' needs. Well, we made the decision to start refunding student housing and dining plans as of March the 16th. We refunded over $3.5 million to students and families, and we were able to request reimbursement for those refunds from the institutional HERF funds. The remaining amount, which was around $2 million, we are using to overhaul our Wi-Fi across campus so that our students have access to quick, reliable Wi-Fi as they're doing their online studies in our courtyards, in the dormitories, or in buildings during this period. Because what you may have is you may have a student who has an in-person class, but right before or after has an online class. So they can't really commute even from the dormitory. So we want to make sure that they have access to sufficient Wi-Fi so that they can attend their class remotely wherever they are on campus. Our Strengthening Institutions program, and we used around $76,000 to host an ILC Summer Institute for faculty over the summer, and I'm sure Raj will want to speak about that a little bit. And that was great. It helped our faculty become prepared to deliver remote distance education in the fall. And then we were able to use the remaining budget for lost revenue. Now we had lost revenue that exceeded this amount. It was almost $500,000, $489,000. And this lost revenue can be attributed to the Mitchell Center cancellations, the Rec Center summer cancellations, summer camps, things of that nature. So that brings me to the most recent round of funding. We received this towards the end of January in 2021. For our institution portion, we received $12.5 million. And again, for our students, we received another $5.7 million. I'm happy to say that we've already awarded all of the student funds to our student population. We didn't have quite as many restrictions on this round of funding. It was basically open to the entire student body, those students pursuing degrees. We did another application process, and we asked one simple question: have you had a need associated with a cost that you're finding hard to pay because of coronavirus, costs like tuition, housing, food? Just one yes, no question. We received 7,055 applications, and we were able to make 6,486 awards. And these awards, next slide, please. These awards, as you can see, 74% went to our undergraduate population. That's around 5,000 awards. We made 148 awards to our medical doctors, our MD program, and around 1,600 to the graduate program. The top award this go around was $1,050. The middle tier, $850. Lower tier, $450, for an average of around $851 award. We also over awarded just a little bit. We used around $125,000 from our institutional portion just to round out all the make sure that we were given sufficient amounts to all the applications we received. And then lastly, the state of Alabama made 2 awards to us, one for COVID relief in general, and then one for COVID relief dedicated to remote learning. I'd like to speak quickly. I mean, PPE, that's some of the PPE we bought here on campus to start bringing employees back. Telework expenses, that's mainly laptops that we had to purchase when the university went completely online and remote. We had to secure some laptops so folks could work from home, and payroll for our admin leave, and COVID leave for individuals who had to quarantine or became ill with COVID and needed to take leave. The last bit, remote learning, and Roger will speak about this a little bit more. We were able to do a lot of different things with the remote learning budget. Some of it was Wi-Fi, some of it was outdoor seating so students could social distance and be on campus. Another thing that we were able to do is we were able to buy 400 computers for our students that can be requested by a student. We're administering that program through South Cares, and that's very exciting. I believe we've given away close to, we're approaching 200 right now. And so we were very fortunate to be able to do that. A couple of other programs that I wanted to mention real quick that we've been able to do that that I'm pretty excited about. We've been able to create a Study Smart program, and this is a program created by Dr. Carr's unit, Nicole Carr's unit, to help our students adjust to remote learning and online learning. And this is just getting off the ground, but it sounds like it's becoming very successful. And I want to recognize the One Stop. So quickly, the One Stop, we created the One Stop from a budget that we had for our call center, our financial aid call center, that we brought back in-house in fall of 2017. We felt like we could do more with that budget, with that workforce. We felt like we had capacity. So by 2019, we stood the One Stop up. And of course, you all know what happened in March of 2020. And so we were able to take, and this is not all of the contact that we've had with students, but last year, over 21,000 phone calls. We had over 1,200 physical location visits, and we implemented a ticketing system in July, and we've handled around 9,000 tickets. And so I'm really proud of that staff that's led by Brooke Moore. And I want to recognize others that helped us administer the HERF money. As you can imagine, having $30+ million awarded to you in within weeks' time can be a challenge, but everyone really came together and made the process work. And I feel really, really good about the work that was done. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Swint? If not, Dr. Kent, is there another report?
Yes, Raj. Yes, good afternoon, Jeb, if you'll bring up my slides. Thank you. Good afternoon. You heard a lot about the support in remote learning for the student side. As the Director of Faculty Development and Online Learning at South, What we focused on in our unit in the Innovation and Learning Center was really supporting classroom instruction and supporting faculty. So the way that we tried to organize this is really think about the pivot that was necessary last March, and then kind of sustaining it for a number of months as we were uncertain about how long the pandemic would last, and then finally growing into this kind of new normal. So I put some general timelines here. That March was a crazy time of pivoting, as all of you did also in the way that you run things like board meetings. Through the summer, we were sort of preparing for a sustained effort. And then starting the fall really became our new normal. The classroom instruction or instruction in general for classes that were not typically online classes were now going to be delivered through a combination of Zoom, that of course has become a household name now, and Canvas, which is our course delivery system or the learning management system. So these were two systems that have really been the core of how we are now delivering instruction at South Alabama. And in the spring, we just see growing confidence among faculty and competence as well with some of these new online learning technologies. So in terms of thinking about, how did we take some of this investment? Julie just showed you some of the remote learning money that's been allocated. And so think about them in terms of the hardware side, the software side, and for the lack of something that doesn't rhyme very well, I just went with peopleware, right? So that's the other thing that we invested in. So to start with the hardware, one of the things that we desperately needed right away is that technology in the classroom to be able to connect our faculty with remote students, because now lots of faculty are teaching in situations where there may have been a few students in the classroom in front of them, but then there's going to be a number of students remote. That started to some degree in earnest in the spring, continued in the summer and the fall, and we're still seeing it now in spring 21. So we have 3 phases to this. Phase 1, 50 classrooms. Phase 2, ongoing, another 50 classrooms. And then phase 3 is sort of in discovery phase, as we are now trying to take stock of where we are and see what additional expansions are needed. And when we think about, if we'll go back, Jim, just a second, the spaces in which instruction happens, right? Or instruction is delivered from. Learning spaces aren't always just the traditional classrooms. So the Laidlaw Performing Arts Center, the Student Center Ballroom, Terrace Room, Faculty Club, these are also spaces where we have curricular or co-curricular activities that are also important to the kind of education that we're providing at South. So those also had to be brought into the fold when we're thinking about technology in the classroom. Thank you, Jeb. In terms of what do these numbers look like? So the network upgrade, that's an ongoing thing right now. That's at about 1.3 million, because with all these new technology, there was of course an increased burden and overhead in terms of the type of network connectivity. There's lots of expansion of the kinds of software that we need to be able to deliver all this instruction. Faculty stipends, and I'll provide a little bit more in terms of what the faculty have been doing to get their stipends. We've also equipped faculty with kits, technology kits, to make them truly mobile. So whether they're on campus or whether they're at home, they can actually have all the tools at their fingertips to provide a sort of really robust and technologically advanced delivery for their students. And then finally, the classroom upgrades, which include installing video cameras, so the classes can be live streamed over Zoom with microphones and sort of additional pieces such as new computers in some of the older classrooms to be able to handle the load of doing live streaming on Zoom. So phase 2, as I said, phase 1 is completed, phase 2 is ongoing. The faculty kits continue to be distributed, and we're in the middle of about 170K so far of classroom upgrades, but that's going to be going on through the rest of the spring semester. I wanted to talk a little bit about Canvas, because Canvas has actually been a game changer. Lots of faculty who didn't really use the learning management system to deliver instruction or make it an important part of their instruction, regardless of the modality in which they teach. Everyone is now on Canvas. We had started this process in late fall 2019. Canvas is a very easy to use system. So as we've migrated people from our old system, Sakai, some of you may have had experience with that back some years ago. We've trained over 1,000 faculty in the new system. And currently as of spring 21, to just give you a sense of how many courses we're talking about, There's well over 2,200 courses that are being actively taught using the Canvas system as a support. We have over 1,000 instructors who are in the system and over 12,000 students who on a regular basis are interacting with the system for various aspects of their instruction. So the Innovation and Learning Center, of course, in terms of supporting our faculty, has been doing lots and lots of various kinds of workshops and trainings. Lots of numbers on this slide. I want you to look at that number of 1245 workshop attendees in the last 12 months to various workshops we've had, but 461 unique participants. So we've been counting just about everybody who's been attending. So that means there's lots and lots of faculty and staff have attended multiple workshops. And I think that's real kudos to people on campus really taking it seriously that they needed to master these new technologies in order to be effective in terms of their remote instruction. If we can move to the next slide, please, Jeb. We've also, for the first time in the ILC's history, really developed some very structured courses. So to put faculty into the seat of what does it like to be a student again as we learn these new technologies in order to teach. We had a summer institute where faculty actually spent over 60 hours in a 4-week period to learn how to use Canvas effectively in their courses. And there's been almost 20% increase, if you look at the graph, in terms of faculty confidence using these tools for their instruction. So we're very pleased with that. And courses continue to be offered. We have 30 faculty learners in a course right now, running in March. We call that March Madness, since the NCAA basketball tournament's not going to be quite the same. So our faculty are on that same kind of sprint to try in 4 weeks to complete several modules that will make them more effective teachers. So we've been, in terms of technology that's in the classrooms, we have both central resources like the Lightboard video recording system that's in our studio at the ILC that faculty can come and use. But then also we've been using the technology out in the classrooms and the faculty kits that faculty can get in order to be effective with their teaching. So we go to the next slide, Jeb. Just some numbers here. We've had over 60 summer stipends that were handed out. We've distributed 90 new laptops to faculty, either Windows or Mac. They had the opportunity to choose whichever one they were more comfortable with, as well as accessory kits. So have a good microphone, have good headphones, video lights, all the kind of pieces that you need to be an effective online teacher nowadays. Quotes are always nice. I don't have those great pictures like they had from the Civic Center with the vaccination effort. However, we've gotten some very nice feedback from faculty in terms of how they found the training. This is our Hello Canvas LMS training to be effective for them to learn new things, to be able to focus on what they're good at, which is the content and assessment of student learning. So I'll stop there and take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. Chaudhary? We really appreciate what you're doing, that's for sure.
I have a question. It might be more for Dr. Kent. I was wondering, listening to both of the presentations, has there been much discussion around, as far as online teaching, what you're going to keep in the fall, what you're going to go back to previously? Could you enlighten us on some of that?
Sure. Yes, we are discussing those things. We have announced, as you may know, that we are going to do our best to be back on campus this fall. But we also recognize that we've learned a lot about online teaching and something you may recognize as a flipped classroom, which certain things we can put on technology and do through online learning. But then when students are in the classroom, they have engaging conversations to support what is online. So those are some pieces that we intend to keep. We also anticipate hybrid models where we have more faculty teaching, some on campus and some remote. And finally, I would say we hope that we're in a new normal with when students may be ill, sick, that they don't have to miss out on learning. We can still engage in remote opportunities with things without them coming to campus and when they're not feeling well. Same for our faculty. So we'll be able to use it in those kinds of ways going forward too. So when we were making these investments, we were very, very strategic in thinking not just about the moment that we're living in with COVID, but hopefully how these tools and technology will take us into the future.
May I ask this question? I assume there are some things that really don't translate well. I think this was already mentioned, but there's some things that won't translate well to the online format. What would be some of those things that you can't really teach online? I imagine would be something like maybe a biology lab or a chemistry lab. Are there any other examples?
Raj, do
You want me to take that? Sure,
Yes.
sure. Yes, Judge Simon, great question. So experiential courses, right? That could be music instruction, right? One-on-one music instruction on a musical instrument. You're absolutely correct. Things like biology and chemistry labs are very hard to replicate. And then in things like nursing, where there's practical skills courses, right? How do you take somebody's blood pressure, right? So those kinds of things do not translate well to the online environment. In some of the cases, what they're doing is they are doing rotating cohorts of students so that in fact the lab is running, but it's a reduced capacity. So where there would normally have been 24 students in a lab, that's down to 12 or even fewer. And it turns out that when we look at some of those areas, that some of the skills that students pick up in lab, some of those, like let's say data analysis, making graphs, those can be done online, but other things like actually setting up the equipment and working with those, that has to be done in person, right? So our faculty in different departments have very carefully customized thinking about what can be shifted and how do we shift it and what really needs to be done in person and how do we do that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Kent.
Thank you.
All right, we now turn to item number 17 on the agenda, and we're going to have a report from Dr. Mitchell on student affairs. Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Judge Wyndham. So if you are a veteran or if you have experience with veterans in your life, when I say the Veterans Affairs Office on a college campus, you're likely to think about benefits or certification of benefits, or how do I get my tuition paid, or how am I going to get my books for the semester as a veteran? But as we've come to know now, retention and keeping students connected to campus and making sure that students graduate is a part of all of our work now. And it's a very important part of all of our work now. And so it's my pleasure today to introduce you to a program that is now a part of our Veterans Affairs Office here on campus called PAVE. And our Associate Director for Veterans Affairs, Mr. Joshua Missouri, is going to talk with you just briefly about peer advisors for veteran education. It is a program that is one of approximately 46 across the country that pairs current veteran students with new veteran students who are just beginning their educations here at South Alabama after military service. It is based out of the University of Michigan, and it started here about a year and a half ago. And so we've had an opportunity to see how it works here at the University of South Alabama. So today, Mr. Missouri is going to share a presentation with you, and he actually has a few peer mentors who are also going to share their experience as mentors in the PAVE program. Mr. Missouri.
Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much for the introduction. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and delve right into the presentation. At its core, if I could have the slide back on. Thank you, sir. At its core, PAVE is about veterans taking care of other veterans. And we extend beyond the cursory level needs of campus resources and extends to conversations that evolve around substance abuse if needed, financial security and wellness if needed. But we're really there to watch each other's back and make sure that as things evolve and as things are needed, we have the proper tools in place that we can refer that service member or student to the proper campus or community resource. Can we have the next slide? All right. So as we mentioned, at the center of it is really going to be the communication piece. It's really important that our peer advisors, and I have two of them who have joined me so graciously today, our peer advisors are maintaining their communication with their students, and there have been ebbs and flows. Of course, the impact of COVID-19 has changed how we would interact naturally with each other, but the program is rather resilient, so we've been able to transition to an online or a virtual environment and still conveying or maintain our outreach efforts. And we'll go ahead to the next slide. In a typical semester, we would begin the semester at a high outreach output, looking for some interactions. And as students have needs, whether they be, I don't know where to go for my financial aid, or I don't know how to get my GI Bill stuff going, they know, the peer advisors rather, know exactly who they can refer that person to. And rather than tell them to call this number, they have a on-campus resource that is better than Google that will allow them to directly link them with the proper resource and get them turned around really quickly. What you're seeing right here is just a chart of the interactions that you would see from a normal semester. When the students would come in, of course, you'd have the hi. Of course, we're reaching out to them at that time. And then those are just outreach logs. And the interaction logs are the students are working with us. And that means we probably have something that we are either working to resolve or we're working to make sure that they have the proper resources in the community. And let's go to the next slide. And right now, this is what we would see during a COVID-19, but the middle of a spring semester is going to be a little bit less communication. However, we also have fewer people enrolled in the program at the current moment. But we do still have outreach going on. We still have some interactions going on. So we're still working to resolve some of the issues that are presenting themselves that would present some challenges for our students as they're trying to matriculate through the university. Now, at this time, I want to go ahead and share the floor with Mr. Zach Ogden, who is on the call with us, and allow him to share his experience as he's been working with students in this PAVE program.
Hey, so I've been a PAVE mentor since the start of the program, before we got COVID impacted. I really enjoyed being able to reach out to veterans and dependents, anybody who's able to benefit from the GI Bill and other programs, especially through tutoring. Veterans come onto campus and they've been out of school for so long, they have a really hard time transitioning. And I know the distance learning has made it a lot harder for veterans. Several have reached out to me saying they've had a hard time with distance. They need that one-on-one interaction. So moving forward in the fall, that's really great for the veteran population in particular. But being able to tutor people through classes and help them reach their goals, that's been really rewarding to me. And I think it's been really helpful to the veteran community on campus. Yeah. That's all I got. Thank you.
Excuse me. Sage, if you're on the call, if you would just share some of your experiences working with the PAVE group. All right. Maybe we don't have Sage is there. There we go.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Hello?
Hey, yes, you're on the call.
Okay. Well, my experience has been about the same as Zach. When I got here, I wish there would have been a paid program for me to help me kind of transition in from getting out of the military. I've had more of my students have required less interaction, I'll say that. But overall, the feedback has been great from them. I think it's a great program. Thank you.
And Zach and Sage are both in graduate studies or professional studies at the university, and they have been so generous and kind and have shared their time with undergraduate students from doing a range of things, from assisting with tutoring, not only just the GI Bill. We're not just talking about financial resources. But we've also been able to link them with mental health resources to prevent things that are common, not as prevalent in the community, but are commonly known in the community. So we look forward to a resurrection of sorts for the program, and we're looking forward to working with this program as it progresses at the university. And thank you all so much for your time. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Hey, Mr. Missouri, thank you so much. Can you tell us how many veterans are enrolled at the university right now?
So I have an approximate 247 veterans. Those are individuals that have worn the uniform enrolled right now, to my knowledge. That is based on GI Bill data. That does not necessarily reflect individuals who are not using the GI Bill.
Right. How many did you say you're enrolled in the university?
247. That's my approximation.
Okay. I thought it was like 1,000. I guess I was.
So the total community, including dependents, service members, that population is very close to 1,000 right now.
Yeah, that's what I was leaving out. Well, I want to let you know I'm a veteran, and would you please reach out to me? I want to get involved in your group and the organization, and do whatever I can to help. And I can probably echo the same for Captain Jenkins too. I want to, whatever we can do to, increase enrollment in veterans and help the ones that are here.
Yes, sir. I have some thoughts about the 20th anniversary of the 9/11, and I would be reaching out because I think we can do some great things on that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Missouri?
I have one. Are National Guard members eligible for GI Bill benefits?
Yes, sir. Depending on the length of their service and the type of service that they performed, there are different benefits that they may be eligible for. In general, yes, they are.
So I wonder if perhaps that's one of our target groups when we're recruiting students.
Based on what I'm seeing right now, we've had an uptick in the number of National Guardsmen. The Alabama National Guard has done something that I think is good. There has been an increase in funding for individuals who signed up for the National Guard, and it just about covers the cost of tuition. There's a process to it, of course, but it's good, and we have seen that there has been an increase in that area. So I agree with you, sir.
Any other questions? If not, thank you again, sir. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, for this report.
And I would say, as Joshua mentioned, we do have a number of veterans who have not connected with Joshua's office. They may not be using their benefits, but we would
I'm sure Sal heard that.
love to have them to connect and to serve as a mentor to the office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last item on our committee's agenda is number 18. We're going to hear a report from Ms. Lynn Chronister on a new program that is in the Department of Engineering, I believe, the Research and Economic Development Group.
Thank you,
Ms.
Judge
Chronister.
Wyndham. Yes, we have initiated and it's still in development a new program, a bit different from what the university normally does, and other universities are going this direction as well. It's called the Talent Development Program. And about 2.5 years ago, I was approached by two chemical companies, the leadership at Evonik and BASF. And they said, we have a real problem, and it's a long-standing problem that's getting worse, and that is recruiting really qualified, skilled workforce, educated workforce. And another problem that we're dealing with, especially right now, is everybody's retiring, and we have no way of replacing these people. And so came back to campus and started talking to a number of people, including Dr. Harold Pardue. And we have, over the last couple of years, with about a year off almost for pandemic, been able to pull together a team, a leadership team that is building this workforce development program. And they are going to share with you where we are going with the program and a little bit of more specific information. And that's Dr. Harold Pardue, the Dean of the Graduate School, and General Steve Duff, who is with us as Director of Talent Development, as a consultant, and Dr. John Usher, the Dean of the College of Engineering. And you're absolutely right, it is within the College of Engineering. And so I am going to turn that over, I believe, to Dr. Pardue first.
Thank you, Lynn. Hey, it's Harold Pardue. Just briefly tell you about the program, our goals, and give you an example. So the goal of the USA Talent Development Program is to transform our community. And I'll talk about that in a second. Our strategy is to listen to our industry partners, to collaborate with our community colleges such as Bishop State, and to deliver world-class talent development for our region's workforce needs. Our two primary objectives are, one, to build a pipeline of career learners from rising high school seniors to senior employees who have made their career in our community and who come back to teach for us, one of my agendas. Two, second objective, to provide access to these careers to underrepresented groups. Our tactics center around a series of integrated certificate and degree programs designed to synchronize with each point in a learner's career. So for example, let's say a recent high school graduate completes the USA 30 credit hour certificate program in process technology and is employed by one of our industry partners. After a year or two on the floor, the learner transfers this certificate to Bishop State to complete an associate's degree in applied science. At years 4 or 5, as a potential team lead with additional responsibilities, they transfer their associate's degree back to South to complete a bachelor's degree in industrial technology in the College of Engineering. At years 8 to 10, transitioning into management and/or hybrid roles, they return to South for stackable graduate certificates designed to meet their specific career goals. For some, the end game will be a doctoral degree, such as the PhD in systems engineering. This pipeline will provide access by addressing the money and math challenge. As for money, these will be employee learners. That is, they will partner with their employer to invest in their education. As for math, our objectives can be met with college algebra. These learners won't be engineers, but they will be well prepared to work with and possibly manage engineers on teams solving advanced problems. We think this is going to be nothing short of transformational for our community. General Duff?
Your mic's not on.
Hey,
Dr. Duff.
Mr. Duff, your mic's off.
not on.
There you
Well,
go.
I missed that. I had to give a shout out to the Jaguar Battalion, class of 1982. Go Jags. As he stated, my name's Steve Duff. Background as a citizen soldier. I retired as a brigadier general after 31 years of military service. And I retired after 25 years of concurrent employment with Avonic, retiring as the chief of staff at the Mobile site. What we're talking about here is the demand. You heard Ms. Chronister talk about industry. Well, industries realize that the trade and craft employees need additional education outside of their trade and craft in order to fully grow and be more productive. The military has been doing this for decades, developing soldiers by coupling trade and craft with leadership training as they progress in rank. Chevron, working with the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, has established a premier petrochemical operator course, which is a great foundation for petrochemical industry as the industry moves forward in this endeavor. University of South Alabama realizes that there is an appetite for undergraduate and graduate degrees in the trade and craft arena. But for these programs to be successful, the students must have a solid foundation, and that is where the talent development program comes into play. The talent development program is currently working with the petrochemical industry to address this need. Our plan is to establish a process technology certificate program similar to the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College certificate program as a proof of concept, and then grow into a talent development program into the other trades and craft. And as Dr. Perdue stated earlier, USA is working in collaboration with Bishop State Community College on this project. When we talk about supply, we're talking about the supply of students. We've been working with industry, as he stated, on establishing scholarships and an apprentice program. We've been working with juvenile court system to identify nonviolent youth at risk for possible social injustice scholarships. We've been in discussion with Mobile Works about scholarships for displaced workers. And I'll be talking with the vocational folks of the VA next week about veterans participation. The potential supply for students basically is endless. Some tangible things here is one, that we are not doing this by ourselves. We are working arm in arm with industry. They've been asking for this. So we have industry support. They will be establishing, or we will be establishing, an industrial advisory board to make sure that we are giving them exactly what they need. We're working in partnership, as I stated, with Bishop State Community College. And the best thing about this is this program, once it's up and running, will be self-sustaining. Some intangibles here. The program is an excellent venue for industry to address social injustice with scholarships and equipment donations. And addressing this need for industry should also facilitate industry donations to the University of South Alabama. And as Dr. Perdue stated, this program is transformational. It will transform industry, their employees, and our community. And we are looking forward to getting this up and running, hopefully this fall. Any questions?
I've got a question, General. Would we be preparing these workers for an industry in which they're going to be replaced by a robot, or are their products going to be replaced by a foreign supplier? I think people are really worried about those kind of things now.
I do not believe you'll never get rid of the chemical plant operators, because somebody has to walk through and check the equipment. You can put all kind of automation on there, but when you are out in the plant, that automation does not tell you some sights and sounds that you can hear before the equipment goes bad, and you don't want the equipment to go bad, and it can't pick up certain things. If they move to the automation complete, we're probably talking 50 or 60 years down the road. But when you talk with specialty chemicals and hazardous chemicals, you have to have that on the ground oversight, that human touch.
That, and we're talking about more programs than just process technology. The first three that we're standing up are instrumentation and equipment, and environmental health, safety, quality, and security. And so it's not just one program for the petrochemical industry, but multiple industries. And so far, we've had feedback from almost 40 industries, including just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got a call from Olin saying, I hear you're doing something. When can we participate? And I wanted to see if Dr. Usher would like to say anything as well.
Nothing really to add. This does represent opportunity. We have been talking with industry, and so that question about automation is a good one, but their indication is they need workers. The placement of this within engineering, this is not an engineering degree, the BS that Dr. Perdue talked about, but it does fall in the area of chemical operations, instrumentation, which is very similar in nature. It would not be engineering because it doesn't carry the same math and science requirements, but it does provide alternative pathways for our students who don't have that necessarily that level of skill at the upper math and science level. So it's an excellent addition to what we currently offer. Thank you.
Thank you all. Any other questions about this great program? All right, thank you, Ms. Cronister. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my long report.
Thank you, Judge Wyndham. I appreciate that. Next item on the list, budget and finance, Mr. Corcoran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monica, would you read the roll, please?
Ms. Atkins,
Here.
Ms. Brown Stewart,
Here.
Mr. Corcoran,
Here.
Mr. Graham,
Here.
Mr. Perkins,
Here.
Judge Simon,
Here.
Dr. Stokes. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have three items. The first would be the approval of the minutes. Would entertain a motion to approve. All in favor? Minutes are approved. Second item will be a review of the quarterly financial statements for the period ending December 31st, 2020. Scott Weldon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. Under tab 21, you have the unaudited financials for the quarter ended 12/31/2020. And I always want to remind you at this meeting that the first quarter of the fiscal year is generally a very positive quarter, and this was no exception. The increase in the net position for the university was $46.2 million for the 3 months ended December 2020 compared to $37.2 in the prior year. The primary reason for the increase had to do with an improvement in financial markets and the recognition of CARES stimulus money in that quarter. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sounds like no questions. Scott, would you?
Okay, moving on to the next item, tab 22, regarding the Series 2021 bonds. At the December meeting, you approved the execution of a bond purchase agreement subject to your ratification at this meeting, following the pricing and the sale of the 2021 bonds. We did price them last week, and while the market was extremely volatile, we had a very, very positive outcome. I would like to take just a minute and thank Terry Albano and Drew Underwood on our staff who did a tremendous job guiding us through this, along with our financial advisors, our bond underwriters, and our bond counsel. At this time, I would like to ask Terry if he would give you the details of the sale of the report and introduce our guest. Terry?
Sure. Thank you, Scott. As Scott mentioned, our 2021 bond issue was a success. It was a little more challenging than previous issues, which we'll discuss here in a bit. The total amount of the bonds came in at $50 million to help finance primarily the new physician's office building and other healthcare related projects. Overall interest came in at 2.582%, which is considered one of the lower rates of our many bond issues. This was a 20-year issue, and our average annual debt service comes in at $3.2 million. I'm going to turn it over to Josh McCoy, our financial advisor from PFM, to talk specifics of the issue. Josh, are you on?
I am, Terry. Thanks. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so our ratings were affirmed by S&P and Moody's at A1, A+. Through the COVID pandemic, S&P did put several of their higher ed credits, both private institutions as well as public universities like USA, on negative outlook. We were successful given the year that the university had managing through the COVID pandemic, improvements in liquidity and cash to remove the negative outlook, revised back to stable. We did sell the bonds with BAM Insurance to get a AA rating, and worked with the university team on ensuring that resulted in a net positive value to the university in terms of our borrowing costs and the maturities insured. That resulted in a lower cost of borrowing between 5 and 10 basis points. Terry, if you'll jump to the next slide. We've provided just kind of historical comparison of the cost of funds relative to prior financings of the university. Terry noted the volatility in the market. That continues today, where we've seen significant rate increases in both the tax exempt and taxable markets. Leading up to pricing, we had had a period of 5 or 6 days of upward rate environment where investors were starting to sit on the sidelines just to wait, for the bleeding to end, so to speak. And we priced on Thursday, had a little bit more stability in the market, and at the end of the day, came in right under 2.6%, which is the purple line on the graph shown here. And you can see relative to prior financings and the 10-year average of the AAA curve, which is the index at which we price tax-exempt bonds off of. A very attractive cost of borrowing, historically speaking, and also relative to the university's prior financings. Terry, the next slide speaks just to the order summary in the book of orders. We offered right at 40 million in bonds and had 132 million in orders from 17 different institutional and retail accounts. The top 10 accounts are listed right here in the top right: Nuveen, Vanguard, First Tennessee, Wells Capital, just to name a few, all very good names that placed orders across the curve for bonds. And with the success of the day and the heavy subscriptions that we had, in total was 3.3 times subscribed, but in parts we were over 7 times subscribed for bonds and various maturities, and we're able to negotiate a repricing of the bonds, lowering spreads between 1 and 7 basis points, and made a recommendation to Scott and the team that they accept the offer to underwrite from Raymond James. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Josh. If there are not any questions, Josh and his group worked extremely hard on this bond issue. Again, as I mentioned earlier, extremely happy with the results. As Scott mentioned, I also want to thank Drew Underwood for his countless hours that he worked on the bond issue. Scott, if you'd like me to go ahead and get into the resolution, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, Terry, please do.
Okay. You do have a resolution in front of you that allows President Waldrop and Scott to execute all documents related to the 2021 bonds. Also have Rod Cantor here, who's our bond attorney for Bradley Arant, who spent many hours regarding the bond issue and is here to answer any questions regarding the resolution or the bond package. So Rod's here. He doesn't get to talk much, and hopefully you have some type of question so he can speak out to the group.
What do we net out of this $50 million bond issue?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What will we actually net?
Net in proceeds?
Yes. Full
50 million.
Yeah, the full 50 million.
After all fees, underwriter fees, and so forth, it'd be 50.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is
Yeah.
it 50 less that or
No,
50
no,
plus
50
that?
50 is the net amount.
Okay.
Yeah, 50 after all costs associated with the bond issue.
Thank you.
Well, Scott, doesn't sound like there are any questions.
When are we closing?
March 10th.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to approve the 2021 bond issue. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes budget and finance.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. Next item on the agenda is the Long Range Planning Committee. Ms. Brown Stewart.
Thank you. Monica, will you call the roll?
Ms. Brown Stewart,
Here.
Captain Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Perkins, Dr. Stokes, Judge Wyndham,
Here.
Mr. Yance.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you, Monica. The minutes were in your package, so do we have a motion for approval?
A motion. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I will turn our report over to Dr. Coleman.
Thank you, Trustee. If you recall, our last strategic plan ended in 2020. We began a new strategic planning process at the end of 2019, and our goal was to have a new plan in place by January of 21. Our planning process was in full implementation when it was interrupted in March of 2020 due to our needed response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the university and the rest of the country continued its pandemic response, our focus shifted from completing the new strategic plan to supporting our response in the pandemic. And at the September 20 meeting, you all voted to extend the current plan through 2021. And in December of 20, we began the new process. So just a little context of where we've been and sort of where we are now. In light of President Waldrop's announcement that he is retiring, we've recommended a modification to the strategic planning process. And this modification will mean that there will be no change to the current priority areas in the existing plan, and no modifications to the descriptions or the current mission or vision. Now, we may recommend some modifications to how we have defined the priority areas based on conversations and data collected from the Strategic Planning Committee and the broader campus community. The bulk of our energy, however, will be focused on identifying new objectives within each priority area. These objectives will set some clear expectations for success for the next 2 or 3 years, or until a new president has an opportunity to come in and establish his or her own strategic planning agenda. But these objectives will be derived from broad-based community input across university constituencies and will complement the goals and priorities of each university division. Our deadline for completing this updated strategic plan remains the same, with the board receiving an updated strategic plan for your consideration at the December 2021 board meeting. The updated strategic plan will provide some continuity for us in our planning process and provides the structure we need for our university budgeting and assessment systems to work in accordance with how we have laid things out for compliance with SAC-COC expectations for institutional planning and effectiveness. This modified planning process also provides the information necessary to ensure that our next quality enhancement plan, also SAC-COC, emerges from our planning process and will have the broad-based support it needs to pass it up and go up for reaffirmation and submit our report next September. That concludes my report on where we are with the strategic planning process. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. Coleman? Okay, thank you, Dr. Coleman. This concludes our report.
Thank you, Ms. Brown Stewart. Next item on the agenda is the Evaluation and Compensation Committee report. Captain Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Monica, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Charlton?
Here.
Mr. Corcoran? Here. Dr. Furr?
Here.
Captain Jenkins?
Here.
Ms. Mitchell?
Here.
Judge Simon?
Here.
Judge Wyndham?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. So good afternoon from Lower Arizona. The committee is in receipt of the 2021 university goals for review, and they were submitted by Dr. Waldrop. The committee is also in receipt of the 2020 results and accomplishments from the university. These were compiled by Dr. Waldrop, the President's Council, and the faculty and staff. The package of results and accomplishments is far too large for a detailed report to you today. It's 53 pages long. It's an outstanding piece of work, and it tells you things that probably most of us on this call weren't aware of. Great details about great things that the university has done. This will kind of be an executive summary of the noteworthy results from Dr. Waldrop and the President's Council.
the financial successes of the USA Health, he listed as number one. The success of the capital campaign, which surpassed the goal despite being in a pandemic situation. The completion of the Hancock Whitney Stadium on time and under budget. The best overall financial budget despite a pandemic. And obtaining $50 million toward the building of the new medical school. Committee wishes to thank Dr. Waltrip and the President's Council, faculty, and staff for providing these outstanding results and achievements for 2020, despite dealing with the massive COVID-19 situation. This report of accomplishments and results and goals will be an annual report to this committee and to the Board of Trustees. Copies of this report and the 2021 goals will be provided to each board member. They may have already hit your inbox. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. That completes our committee's report.
Thank you, Mr. Captain Jenkins. And thank you, Dr. Walter. We hate to see you make the notice that you're leaving, but we understand. And along with the Long Range Planning Committee, I think the Evaluation and Compensation Committee also will have different work to do as we move forward. Next item on the agenda is the Committee of the Whole. And everybody turn your mics on because Monica's going to be asking for all of us. Monica, would you call the roll?
Ms. Atkins,
Here.
Ms. Brown Stewart,
Here.
Dr. Charlton,
Here.
Mr. Corcoran,
Here.
Dr. Furr,
Here.
Mr. Graham,
Here.
Captain Jenkins,
Here.
Ms. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. Perkins, Chairman Schumach,
Here.
Judge Simon,
Here.
Dr. Stokes,
Here.
Ms. Tuckson,
Here.
Judge Wyndham,
Here.
Mr. Yance,
You stepped out.
and he is here. All present.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to approve the revised agenda, which is before us. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the last Committee of the Whole meeting. Those minutes were included in the packet. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the last item on the agenda is the recommendation to approve the amendments to the presidential search guidelines and the appointment of a presidential search committee following the notice from Dr. Waldrop of his retirement and Ms. Julie's opportunity in North Carolina. So I'll first of all, the information was included in your packets last evening. And I'll entertain any questions or comments before we approve. Kristen is going to help with any with the comments or as the amendments to the presidential search guidelines. I can touch on those real quick. Basically the only change that's really substantive in the guidelines is the addition of a graduate student to the committee, given the fact that our graduate enrollment is so significant at the university that having a graduate student is one that we felt like, or I felt like, was really important in today's climate of where we are with our school and with our graduate program, particularly in light of the fact that the medical school is doing as well as it is and growing and that sort of thing. So that's I think that's the only change. Any questions or comments regarding that? Any other questions or comments regarding either that or the appointments?
Jimmy, if I can step in, we made one other change, and that was to allow you to appoint a secretary of the search committee rather than have the secretary of the board automatically be the secretary of the search committee.
That's correct. And the main reason for that is, but prior to that is the secretary was automatically a member, a non-vote, well, automatically a member as the secretary of the board. But if you wanted to choose the secretary of the board, for example, as the chair of the committee or another position on the committee, you couldn't do that. So it just kind of provides a little bit more flexibility. Yes, you need the flexibility. Yes, sir. Will I hear a motion? There a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. That concludes that. I've got one more item, and that I will read the motion. I make a motion to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing good name and character and pending and threatened litigation. Kristen Dukes has submitted the required written attorney's declaration for the minutes. The executive session will last approximately 45 minutes, and the committee of the whole meeting is adjourned immediately at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, just quickly, it's going to take us a second. We're going to get to a different place. Those of you who are on Zoom have your way of getting in, and the rest of us will convene in the Moulton boardroom in the back of the building.